Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to touch on something that's a little bit of a tricky subject because it involves technology, and I am clearly not anti-technology, but I do think that some of the ways that we use our current social media and our technology, our phones, our televisions could be vastly improved. Like all animals, we tend to take whatever is giving us a good response in our body and really cling on to it. It's just the nature of the beast and it's the nature of our biology. It's always going to be really beneficial for us to look at what we're doing, see how we can improve, see if the current setup and the current way that we're using this amazing advance that we have in communication, see if we can improve it so that we're not losing our sense of community and our sense of selves. So first things first, social media does not cause depression. Let's just get that out there. Social media is a tool. It can be a very positive tool for communication, for learning. However, it can also be used in kind of irresponsible and damaging ways. And that's not to say that, you know, it's your fault if you're depressed because you're doing this to yourself. It's that we all have things that we need to learn and things that we can improve upon in our own behaviors. So we need to look at that. So a study published in Computers and Human Behavior found that it wasn't the amount of time that you spent online that contributed to your depression or anxiety, but rather how many social media platforms you were engaging in. So this was a survey of about 1,800 young adults, and they found that people who used the most social platforms were 3 times as likely to suffer from depression or anxiety as people who used the least amount of platforms. Now for me, this is very telling. On the one hand, it is just a snapshot of people's moods at that particular time, and it wasn't a super in-depth study, but also it's kind of obvious to me that the issue is not necessarily the social media platforms, but the way that we're using them as sort of a virtual keeping up with the Joneses. While there are benefits to social media such as community building, emotional support, and creativity, it can also set really unrealistic expectations of one's life and lead to a feeling of inadequacy. And that is really what we're seeing with people who use a lot of social media platforms. And you might be interested to know that Instagram ranks the highest on creating anxiety and depression, and YouTube scored the best on self-expression. So color me surprised. So it's also important to note that teenagers are hit especially hard as there is a need to fit in with your social group and the people that you look up to. And because many of us only post online our happiest moments, our most successful moments, the things that are going well in our life, it really does set that unrealistic expectation that everything that you see online is happening perfectly for this human. And for me, my life kind of sucks a little bit, and I mean for myself personally, even though I often remind myself, you know, this is a snapshot of this person's life, I can't possibly know if this is the entirety of their existence, if they really are living this happy and healthy and wonderful life, because there's always stuff behind the scenes. Even I can sometimes get kind of wrapped up in the feeling of, wow, this person is like really succeeding in life, and this makes me feel really insecure with where I am. Another really big factor in social media causing depression and anxiety is online bullying. So about half of teenagers and about 40% of adults report being bullied online. And this can include anything from releasing sensitive information or photos, threats, calling people offensive names, and sexual harassment. It really does encompass a lot of different negative behaviors that people face online. And as a personal aside, I just want to say, if you're a type of person that believes that the internet relieves you of any responsibility to be a decent human and allows you the ability to, without consequence, harass people, emotionally abuse them, or sometimes just out and out physically threaten them, then you can go f yourself. The internet, whether you like it or not, is an aspect of our very real life. And the things that you do on the internet have consequences whether you feel them or not. So you can't just call someone a name, say something horrible to them, and expect that that doesn't reflect on you as a person because it's just on the internet. If you are making threats or saying horrible things to people online, guess what? That makes you a douchebag in real life too. Congratulations. And if you're one of the people who has unfortunately had experience with online bullying, the only thing that I can say is I feel for you. It's horrible, and happy people don't go out of their way to make other people feel like shit. So just know that as horrible as someone is being to you, that doesn't bring them joy. It actually means that they're probably a pretty miserable person. That doesn't make your experience any better, but it at least kind of lets you know where they're coming from, and sometimes that helps a little bit. So now, while we're talking about social media and how it can cause depression, I think it's really important to talk about the difference between the brain of a person who is a young adult, meaning under 25 or a teenager, and an adult with a fully developed brain. And that is not to say that teenagers or young adults are like stupid people. It has nothing to do with that. I find that teenagers and young adults are at their most creative, they're most emotionally intense, and that means that their drive is unparalleled, which is amazing, but it also comes with some negatives that we'll get into right now. So adults have brains that utilize primarily the prefrontal cortex. That's difficult to say. Prefrontal cortex. And that is the part of the brain that is very rational, that thinks before they act, that thinks before they think even. And this allows them to respond to all stimuli with a reasonable amount of good judgment. So they use their experiences in the past and can immediately process them. Whereas teenagers operate mostly with the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional response. That is why they are so creative, because they're just tapped in to all of this swirling energy, and it's incredible, but it also can make you feel completely insane a lot of times and make you feel like you don't have control of your reactions sometimes. I remember feeling that way, and I also remember feeling like, and I still feel like, that was my most creative and like intense and beautiful time in my life, you know, aside from raising a small human who is pretty cute. So because teenagers are working with primarily the amygdala, that can lead them to very impulsive and irrational responses to things. So literally the prefrontal cortex is not catching up to them in time to say, that's not reality. So the big thing to realize if you are a person who happens to be under the age of 25, when those two parts of the brain start connecting a little bit better, they never really fully connect for some people, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm a good person still. So the important thing to remember about all this is that, you know, this is neither a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing. And if you remember that, oh, hold on. My brain is operating at a different level right now. I need to think about this for a second and realize that my initial reaction to something is maybe not realistic and is maybe not rational. Sometimes it's, you know, totally fine to operate on a completely emotional and impulsive level, and that can be very exciting, and that can lead to a lot of amazing and wonderful experiences. But when it has to do with you looking at somebody else's life online and then looking at your life and saying, oh, my life sucks, I should just stop, then that's when it's important to take time to think, okay, let me just think about this. This is a snapshot of their life. This is a snapshot of my life. This does not say everything about what I'm experiencing, and this does not say everything about what they're experiencing. And sometimes just giving your brain that time for the prefrontal cortex to kind of catch up and say, you're fine, babe. Sometimes that really helps. And I find that I even sometimes still have to do that backtracking and say, oh, hold on a second, rein it in. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a failure. Everything's going to be fine. And you know, it might not always feel like it's going to be fine, but just reminding yourself that this is not the complete picture. sometimes that helps you out. So here are some of the best practices that I've found that help me with utilizing social media in a healthy way. Now this one, the first one, is really hard, and that is give yourself a time limit. We've become so accustomed to the instant rush of picking up your phone and seeing more input and scrolling, and infinite scroll ruined my life. I swear to God. It's so beautiful and so toxic. So because you've become accustomed to immediately picking up a phone, seeing something, and getting that kind of rush of like, oh, someone commented, getting that like instant hit of whatever chemical makes you feel good at that particular moment, we have become unaccustomed to not having that. So it can often feel anxiety producing to not have your phone and not be looking at it. So the first thing and the hardest thing is to give yourself a time limit. And slowly, after kind of becoming accustomed to only having a specific amount of time to check on social media every day, and maybe limiting that to, 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night, you'll start to train yourself to be more thoughtful in how you approach it too, because you're being very thoughtful with how you approach it in the morning and in the evening, and really setting your boundaries with that. You'll start to look at it and say, okay, well, that's making me feel shitty, so I'm not gonna look at that right now. The second tip is to, if it's possible for you, meaning if your business or livelihood, whatever, is not tied up in really using social media effectively, then try to limit your social media accounts to as few as possible, and really cultivate something that makes you feel good, not something that stresses you out or makes you feel insecure about where your life is right now. So again, I said in that research that Instagram rated the worst for body image and rated the worst for making people feel anxiety prone and making people feel insecure and like failures. Look at the things that you're using and say, how does this make me feel? Look at the accounts you're following and say, how does this make me feel? I know that I started feeling so much better about myself when I used my Instagram to cultivate artists that I really love to follow, like visual things that stimulate me and make me inspired. So if you can do that on your Instagram, on your Facebook, if you can just have that be full of people that inspire you and not people that, are showing off their wealth or showing off whatever fabulous new thing they've purchased, or showing off how many vacations, lavish lifestyles they have, then I feel like you will see that that makes a world of difference in how you feel when you use social media. And besides, the vast majority of people do not need a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, a Snapchat, Pinterest, a YouNow, a YouTube. Like, most people do not need that much input at all times. So if you can cultivate a good list that makes you feel good about yourself, that allows you to have that contact and communication with people who are important to you, and then all of the other stuff is going to be stuff that inspires you or makes you feel good, then you'll probably see a huge difference in how you feel about yourself from day to day. And the third tip is, if you can limit your social media to an hour, 30 minutes, whatever that limit is, give yourself the exact same amount of time to do something that feeds your soul, feeds your body, feeds your mind, something that makes you feel good about you from the inside out. So whether that is reading a book, or going for a walk, or calling a friend, I don't know, playing with your dog, hopefully. I like dogs. Basically, you're not using social media as a way to avoid self-care, and you're allowing yourself that time to give back to you instead of constantly draining it toward an inanimate object. So like, you're not on your phone all the time. You're doing something that actually makes you feel good. And trust me, I know how social media can kind of suck the will out of you to like get off the bed and take a shower or do something productive. So really, this is a way of avoiding that time suck that social media can be, because infinite scroll. And last but definitely not least, remember that social media is a tool, and any tool is a weapon if you hold it right. Make sure you're using social media to connect to the people that you love, to find things that are inspiring, to educate you, instead of looking to see who has what and who's doing better than you, and what person has a better body and what person has the best car, because that stuff just makes you feel shitty about yourself, and it's pointless because you are perfect just as you are. So basically, you're never going to be anyone but you. You have this life, you have this body, You have this set of skills, so use it to your best advantage. No one else can be you either. You are perfectly you, and you are good enough as you are. So use your social media time to either be creative or connect with people that, live far away. Do something that's positive with it instead of letting it drag you down. I hope you all found this video helpful. I'm definitely looking to do more videos about just, self-care, mental health, things of that nature. So please let me know what you want to hear about next in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you really liked it, hit the subscribe button. I make new videos every Tuesday and Thursday, so come back and see me. And now that we've talked about how to best regulate your social media time, I can tell you that I have all social media accounts. Some I use more often than others, but you can find me elsewhere at OjoLeeXOX, and that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all the same username. Pick the one that works best for you, I guess. All right, you guys. See you next time. Mwah. And I've also been doing live streaming every Saturday at 11 a.m., so definitely check back for that. And I love hearing from you guys. There's the super chat there that you can type, and I'll get your message like 3 minutes later. But whatever, it's still like you can type with me and we can have a conversation. It's kind of fun.